So as is not tradition, it's tradition in my household. Like whenever I go downstairs, I always tell my wife, like, hey, if I'm gonna play like my PlayStation or watch TV or whatever, a podcast, but I tell her tonight, hey, I'm podcasting. And she looks at me and she says, there's nothing to talk about. Why are you podcasting? And I'm like, this is the best time of year to do this shit because you can talk about whatever you want. And it's not gonna be like weird or anything. It's all just like hypotheticals that you and I get to discuss of what could possibly be happening in 6.5 months from now.
Absolutely. Off season podcasts are always the best because like everyone's looser, right? It's not as stodgy
Yes.
because oh no, our team lost this week, so we're bummed for the recap, or oh, we're facing a juggernaut, so we're bummed for the preview. Now it's like, hey man, the season's over. It is what it is. We're chilling.
I know. It's more about sad about players we thought we had dreams of getting, but
Yeah.
aren't gonna get, which I've seen the discourse for it a lot, and a lot of it's coming from your replies of you and
Yeah. Oh my
conversations.
gosh. Right. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, interesting. I didn't think it'd be as divided as it was. Like, so the tweet in question just kind of mentioned the three names I thought were the likeliest to make it to free agency and be realistic, or not make it to free agency, but be realistic options to acquire over the offseason. We're talking
Yep.
Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, and Amari Cooper. Those are the three. Everyone's like, but this guy is washed. I want this guy. And it's all like everyone thinks all three are washed.
Yeah.
And they would rather have one of the other two instead. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But though I still believe those are the best, the most likely, not best, the most likely options to be available for the Patriots, because I don't think, T. Higgins obviously getting tagged. That's the lead there. T. Higgins is tagged, and so obviously off the radar for the Patriots unless they want to, make a trade involving at least 2 first-round picks or something to that effect. I don't really love that. So he's off the board. That's not going to happen. Chris Godwin is everyone's like new pivot. They're like, oh, but what about Chris Godwin? He's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, he is awesome. But he's also hurt. And I just, generally speaking, with players who are hurt, I kind of just assume they're going to go back to wherever they were, because they have to like rehab, obviously physically rehab, and more importantly, players coming off of significant injuries in the season don't typically get lucrative deals come free agency. So in my mind, I think both he and Stephon Diggs was the other player that I mentioned, and Diggs for other reasons, but in my mind, both guys I assume will just be back with their original teams and they will not hit free agency. That's why, those are the three names: Cooper, Kupp, and Deebo. Those are the three names I put out, because everyone else is mainly names at that point, mainly names.
So Diggs is interesting, and I also think that has to do with the fact that I believe Tank Dell's not going to be around at all for 2025 as well. So
I agree with that.
Yeah, like he hurt himself late, like right before Christmas. It's just, emotional. CJ needs his emotional support receiver, but then if you have a Robert Woods, we'll see if John Mechie finally gets a chance to shine, and then you also have Xavier Hutchinson's another name I feel like that kind of doesn't get recognized enough in Houston.
I like him. Yeah. I like him. I wanted him out of the draft. I thought he was really underrated. Evan Lazar actually sold me on him. He did a really nice breakdown on him way back when, and I was like, he kind of ball out. I kind of like him.
Yeah, so that's the thing with Houston, where it's kind of like I see Diggs going there. There was that weird report of like, oh, the Giants want him, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'd rather the Giants go out and get someone who's not, coming off a torn ACL to pair with Malik Neighbors. I've also been seeing, and I've been seeing this a lot, and I've been asking a couple Giants fans this, but the whole rumors of two things with the Matt Stafford stuff is, one, what does Matt Stafford do that gets them better now? And two, why would he want to go spend the rest of his career if he's going to leave LA in a market that's not ready to win in the next 3, 4, 5 years? So that's one point I want to make as well, just because
I don't really get that either, actually. It's sexy, like it's sexy, it sounds sexy. You're like, oh, Matthew Stafford, you can sell fans on Matthew Stafford, even though he's at the end of his career. You can put down his accolades in terms of like leading the league in passing, because he does that every year. He's fully healthy. He leads the league in passing. He's one of the he doesn't turn it over a ton. Super Bowl champion now. So I can see you selling a fan base on Matthew Stafford. I just don't really know if it makes sense in New York, because I think their timeline's a little longer than people are willing to admit, right? Because it kind of feels like people think New York is a quarterback away. And I'm like, yes, but have you seen their defense?
And their offensive line.
And yes, yeah. So it's like they're not quite a receiver away. I mean, not quite a quarterback away. I know that you went out and get Malik Neighbors, and that's like a really exciting name. Like, oh, you got to get him a quarterback. Also, the emergence of Wan'Dale Robinson played really
Tyrone
well.
Tracy.
Yeah, so like they have some offensive players that you're like, oh yeah, cool, we can really make that happen. But there's no way you're like, oh, we'll just go out and get a quarterback, insert him here, and this team's going to win 10, 11 games. I'm like, nah, it's not a very good team.
I think everyone kind of takes away from what Washington did to where it's like, and this was happening last year with it was a player where this year for fantasy football and everything else, everyone's like, I found this year's Puka Nacua. This guy's gonna be great. And I'm like, let the stuff that happens like that organically happen. Like Washington being good now, everyone like say if the Patriots have a good offseason, everyone's gonna be like, oh, the Patriots are gonna be this year's Washington, or this team's gonna be this year's Washington. It's like just let it happen naturally. Washington was great because no one had expectations for them. Meanwhile, New York, it's not that quarterback away. It's, hey, you got to get the guy who's going to jump over the pile of a tush push in the NFC Championship game to get your team to go from like 3 wins to I think 10 or 11 wins. But no, there's so much right now. But I want to sell Patriots fans and you on a player from the Bengals whose names actually come up in trade talks per NBC Sports because of pay. He's a defensive player.
Okay.
Jermaine Pratt.
Yeah.
Because I think they basically went to him and said, hey, you're a free agent. We're not going to be able to pay you because, they got to pay Higgins. I've heard Chase could get up to 40. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I think
that feels strong.
I feel like 35, 36 probably for Chase.
Agreed. Yep.
And then they also got Trey Hendrickson as well, which kind of leaves Jermaine Pratt as odd man out. And you have a New England team that, look, they need more linebacker help because Tavai on his own was just not it. And Bentley's coming off a torn pec. So get a younger guy in there like a Jermaine Pratt who, can play and be serviceable, because Cincinnati has effed this up before where they're like, oh, we're going to get rid of Jesse Bates. And it's like, oh, we got Dax Hill and it's fine. And Dax Hill, first round pick, wasn't exactly a fine turnout for them. So send them a pick. I don't know, like a third or a fourth or whatever they want.
I'm not huge on Jermaine Pratt. I think he's fine. I thought he was better last year than he was this year. And I think that's just a product of having a better defense around him. So I think I don't know. I think he fits better somewhere with more.
You muted yourself, sir.
I got it. I saw it. I think he plays better somewhere that is going to have a more established defense around him. I worry about his fit here because I don't think the D-line is good enough to allow him to play his game. He's better. He's not like a great block shedder, right? He's not someone who's going to like take on linemen, shed and make a sick tackle or whatever. He's really good at finding gaps, though. He's really good at playing his gaps, finding the rush lane and getting after the ball carrier in that way. And to do that, you obviously want a D-line that can keep it clean up front. I think if he's forced to play in a defense where he is taking on offensive linemen like he would be with the Patriots, I just don't really see that working. And that's just more an indictment on the Patriots front four not being very good on paper. And there's obviously an asterisk there. We don't know if Christian Barmore is back or not, and to what capacity. And if we're going with the assumption that he's not, I mean, that's a woeful D-line that you're going to be asking a lot. So I don't know. I don't love Jermaine Pratt, but I do agree the Patriots need an upgraded linebacker, especially because right now you just can't have Bentley be your only guy who can play off the ball. Because Tavai, goodness Lord help us. Once they moved him off the ball this year, obviously with the injury, they moved him off the line of scrimmage and kind of had him playing in space. And it was like, yeah, he's back to being the Tavai that everyone was like, this guy can't play. So I think they need a really good second inside linebacker, and that'll allow them to play Jelani Tavai more on the line of scrimmage. And, I don't know that Jermaine Pratt is going to do enough for him to be the guy there.
I think you could probably send him to Indianapolis with his DC and pair him up with Zaire Franklin,
And you are cooking there. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's exciting.
I just thought of that. I'm like, because a lot of guys do that, though, where they'll follow their position coach and go somewhere where it's like, hey, like you're saying with the rehab, with the athletic training staff, it's the same sort of thing with some players where they're like, hey, Lou knows how to use me. Lou's in Indianapolis now. and I can go there and kind of be that off-ball guy and pair him up with Zaire. And plus two,
Yep.
Colts kind of have they have an NFL level D line. You know, I know it's
Yep.
not saying much, but like
Yeah, I agree.
DeForest Buckner went there, and I feel like he's kind of not forgotten about, but I feel like people kind of go, oh yeah, like DeForest Buckner, I remember him. You know, like
he's like the best player that no one ever talks about anymore.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's that
And
player
he's like
where
still pretty good, and you're like, I don't know, man.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah, like you know, it's like him because I remember he was a draft night trade because the 49ers wanted Kinlaw, who's now in the Jets,
Yep.
which that's another example I bring that up because I know he's fired now. But remember how many guys followed Robert Saleh to to New York?
Absolutely.
Which yeah. Yeah, I just brought up Pratt because I was like, you know what? Hey, it's that time of year where you can just float names around. You get ready, excited for the combine, which I know we were talking recently about combine plans with the last time the four of us were on, and you'll be eating your hot wings. I'm not sure what I'll be eating yet, but my wife just discovered the video of Chris Jones from the combine where I think it was one of his balls fell through his shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's a fun video that goes around every year because every year everyone's like, "Is that his?" Oh my gosh! Yeah, his junk fell out of his pants.
Oh, it got brought up, but I had to bring it up now. Which perfect pivot segment to. I don't even want to talk about the Super Bowl because the game's over and the game happened, and we all know what happened. Even though now the Xavier Worthy touchdown is the new. Oh, look at this Patrick Mahomes incompletion from 55.
Yeah.
I'll say this though, I don't know if I don't like it, but I feel like Kansas City fans have to learn how to accept loss because it's gone from he's the greatest of all time to he's only 29. It's like, guys, loss had it's like we've been saying, we were waiting for them to have a bad day.
Yeah.
And they
had a bad day. A bad day to have a bad day, but like we all year, every time I came on the show, I was like, hey, this week Kansas City's due. They're due. And I never picked against them, but I always thought like, they're due for a bad game. So this could be it. And it finally happened in the Super Bowl. And it's just tough to see. Although I was having a good time with it.
I had a good time too with it. I was just like, because the day of I was doing the games, where it's like anthem time. What's the when the player who gets MVP, who are they going to thank first? One of those pools. In the moment, I was like, I wrote Eagles. Something in me just said, write the Eagles. Like I was just like, it's that now or never. I'm like, just pick them. But God damn it, I've had this cough for like 10 days now. But no, it was just one of those things where I was just like, pick them, and then even. I don't know what it was, but did you see the photo of the people like them hanging the Kermit doll?
No,
So basically, there was a Philly fans like basically hanging a Kermit doll, and there was also the one of someone with a dog leash on a Chiefs helmet walking it, being like, "You got dog walked in this game." But the Kermit thing, people were saying like, "Oh, that's racist." I'm like, it's not racist. It's making fun of his voice, which the kid cut his hair now. And I'll say this too, they'll be there. I don't know what's going to happen. They're more in a flux right now where I just don't know what to expect because I think there's going to be change. The more I hear and think about it, I know going out on that game's not the best note for him, but the more I look at it, I look at Travis and I'm like, I think he's done. So
he is. That young man is cooked. And I mean that like with all of my heart. You're just watching him run around. You're like, oh, he's not. And I think. Okay, so I think what my issue is with Kansas City fans, my biggest gripe with them right now isn't that they can't take a loss, but I do think that's a fair one. They complain about every loss, and they're like, oh, but wait, and I'm like, just revel. Your team's doing great. I think the thing right now that irritates me with Chiefs fans is that they're refusing to acknowledge what is like obvious, right? So we're like, cool, Travis Kelce, he's washed, like he's not the same guy. And they're like,
36.
yes, but he almost had he had like 800 yards and then 6 touchdowns and la la la. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but like, if you are as big a Travis Kelce fan as you say you are, you cannot disrespect who he was by saying this guy and the guy from 2020 are the same guy. That's a lie. You know what I mean? Patriots fans used to do it with Gronk, right? When at the end there in 2018, he was kind of running around. Everyone's like, no, he's still vintage Gronk. And I'm like, no, I watched vintage Gronk like in 2012 when he was doing what he was doing, in 2011 when he broke the touchdown record for tight ends. You're looking and you're like, I don't know, man. Like that guy and the guy I'm watching in 2018 are not the same guy. All due respect, like we love these players, and so we're like, no, we're gonna defend him. We're gonna defend him. But like, you can't tell me you're watching Travis Kelce run around out there and think, yeah, this is the same guy from 2019. There's no way.
Even the way Buffalo was able to blanket him in the AFC Championship game, and then
like he's just getting absolutely clamped by guys that he should, like in most situations, would absolutely make a highlight reel out of. You know what I mean? Like he's getting claimed by those kind of guys. And I'm like, I don't know. The Travis Kelce I know, he had the big catch in the Super Bowl, the catch and run. Or was it the Super Bowl?
No, Houston.
Yeah. And you're watching him run and you're like, oh man, like he's taking a bit to get there. Like, or there was one in the championship game as well. And you're just like, Travis Kelce of old would have scored on that. And he got tackled down to the 2. And it's like, I don't understand. I don't see it. So it irritates me that Chiefs fans are just like pretending he's not what we're looking at. I'm like, no, it's okay if he's no longer who he was. You saw him in his prime. He's a Hall of Fame tight end, all the flowers in the world, but it's time for him to hang it up.
Yeah, and it's also too. I listened to clips from New Heights, and it was just the language where he's like, "I'm going to push this down. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to consider it." Whenever you hear words like that, I think it's always just because, like, how during Super Bowl week he was always too like, "Oh, I can play it forever," because he's not going to come out and say this. But then apparently the night before the game, like when they're doing their whole team meetings and walkthroughs, super emotional, just super everything. Everyone's kind of getting the vibe of like, okay, like I think you know what, it's kind of it for him. And for Chiefs fans, it's not a. And also, too, I'll say this as well, 2018 Gronk as well. The moment, because like the only moment I feel like from that playoff game, the playoff series that really stands out was the catch in the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah. Well, he had the 3 consecutive. They weren't incredible catches, but it was an incredible stretch of play when he had the 3 catches against Kansas City on those 3rd and 10s. Just absolutely cooking Sorensen. I was like, yeah, this is great.
There was also one from that game that I saw recently, and I was just like, God damn, Tom's so good. That's the Philip Dorsett catch right before half.
Yeah. That the one that had absolutely no business being caught. Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah, but no, back to Travis though, where it's just like, it's okay to admit that, like, look, no one's out here saying like, oh, he's a bad player or anything, or bad career. Hell, 3 Super Bowls in the conversation for the greatest tight end of all time, Hall of Fame resume. When he retires, there's going to be, I feel like, I don't know how it's going to go, but there's going to be like, it's just going to be, hey, you know what? It was his time. It's like every football player. Another great example too is watching prime Ben Roethlisberger towards the end of his career. Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Right. And that's exactly what it is. I understand no one wants to see their favorite player suck. And so it's great that, we never got to really see Tom Brady suck. But if he plays long enough, guys are going to start to suck. And right now, Travis Kelce, he looks like he looks like someone who is about to suck. You know what I mean? Like it's probably time to go ahead and put the kibosh on that and let him ride off into the sunset, because he's not doing himself any favors.
Yeah, and he's got acting. He's got they're making they're each of them are making $16 million, 16 and a half a year from New Heights as well, from Amazon. So, it's like on to greener pastures. Hey, you've got this, you got this, you got that. My thing I've always been saying too is though, it's just Pat, and I'm not discrediting him, but it's how does he reinvent himself as he gets older, as you lose your security blanket. Because if you look at the team right now, like running back, like Kareem Hunt's like good in the small sample size, but not over the course of the year. Offensive line, good Lord. It's just so funny with them because you have probably the best center in the league right now, if not one of the best centers in the league right now, Creed Humphrey.
Creed Humphrey, probably the best center in the league, right?
The only people I'd put up in that category is him. I'd probably say Cam Jurgens.
Yeah. Okay.
Linderbaum.
And then Tyler Linderbaum would be my other.
Another guy I really like coming out from the 22 draft, by the way.
Yes, and instead we ended up with Cole Strange.
Who Baltimore? I just saying this now. Baltimore really hit it out of the park there. Now they got some guys to pay. They got him to pay, and they got Kyle Hamilton to pay this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, but that's never. You will never
want those problems.
Exactly. Never lament having to pay guys. So that means they're playing well.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think with the Chiefs, the best way I can put it, right, and walk with me here, because it's gonna sound crazy. I think they just had their 2013 Patriots year, right, where the team wasn't that good, but the quarterback's the best in the league, the best in the business, in the conversation for best of all time, and So therefore, he's going to drag a team that's not that good to the playoffs. And it just so happened he dragged them to the Super Bowl. But that offense, and this was the case all year, but that offense had no business in the Super Bowl. What year are you thinking? The 2013 Patriots?
I'm trying to remember who they played because I know they lost really. They got outplayed by Denver in that AFC.
Yeah, they got murdered by Denver. They played Indianapolis.
And they killed Andrew Luck.
That was the game where Alfonso Dennard had the almost pick six on LeVon Brazil.
Yes.
And Dante Hunter had an interception, and LeGarrette Blount, I think, went for 166 and 2.
Yeah, he had. He was just a colt killer. Just going off track, there's 2 games from that season there's 3. There's the one where it was like my first time ever getting legitimately mad when Kuechly didn't get called for pass interference on Gronk.
Yes, against oh my God, that Monday night game I will never forget that game.
The Saints game, which I had to watch with my grandparents because it was our Thanksgiving.
Where's the beef? Yeah.
And when my dad's like, "Hey, act normal, don't freak out," and he catches that touchdown, I just start running around like living like an idiot. And then what was the other game from that year? I remember.
Was it the Browns game where they were down?
Yeah, it was the Browns game, and where I was in college, and the next day someone walks in, they look at me right away, and they're like, "They should not have won that game." And I was just like, "No, the Broncos game," because I was like, I had lost hope, and then
oh my gosh, that game that was my favorite. Oh, that was my favorite game of the year. I was like, oh
Gronk
my
with
goodness.
the one-handed catch.
Yep, they had the nonstop fumbles, right? LeGarrette Blount fumbled after Stephen Ridley got benched for fumbling.
Yes.
Sean Moreno fumbled. Peyton Manning had 3 of his own. That was
Patriots
and then to muff the ball on the punt in overtime. God, what a year! But that's what I think of when I think of this year's Chiefs team, where the defense was obviously a good defense up until it wasn't. But the offense wasn't good enough, and now you're looking at them, and they're in transition, right? They will likely need to replace Travis Kelce. They need to do something about the wide receiver situation. I know they have names, but I don't know they have games. DeAndre Hopkins,
maybe on the greener pastures.
Yeah, it's probably
Hollywood Brown. I don't know.
Hollywood Brown missed, I think, almost the entire year.
He had a super weird injury in the preseason. It was like his shoulder or his neck, but it was like the way that it happened was just like really freaky and stuff like that. I could see that like him, like, hey, you want to come back on a cheap deal? A lot of people are trying to say too, they're in cap hell, but I know Pat. Have you seen Pat Mahomes' cap hit?
No, what is it?
66.
Wow, that's a big number. They're gonna obviously have to get that down. I don't know that you can just carry a raw 66 on there.
Oh God, no! You gotta hear this one of what their cap situation is for this year, because I know they got a lot of players carrying a lot of weight, and I know Travis Kelce does retire, a lot does come off of the books. This thing will okay, so Pat Mahomes 66, Chris Jones 34, Jawan Taylor 27, Joe Tooney 26, Travis Kelce 19, Creed Humphrey 10, and then Drew Tranquil at 8.5. Okay,
so they're probably gonna have to do something about Jawan Taylor, right? Like that.
Oh, good Lord.
What a mess. What a mess of a pickup he was. And I know he just signed in, I think it was 23. But they're gonna have to like figure out that 27 is too big a number, but I don't think they're able to get out of it until after this year, which would be terrible. But they got some nice Super Bowls out of it, so it is what it is. But I think they can get out of it next year. They're gonna have to, or after next year, they're gonna have to figure out something with Jawan Taylor. You can't have him at that number. Drew Tranquil is probably also just gonna end up being a casualty. Now he's someone.
Yeah,
he's someone.
Low key, very young too. He's only been in the league since 2019. Nick Bolton, I would look at too, but I just feel like they're probably gonna get rid of Drew Tranquil and re-up Bolton for the price.
You would hope so, but Drew Tranquil is someone I think would be a Patriot kind of player. That's someone I'm like, I could rock with that. You bring me Drew Tranquil, I'll be all right.
Yeah. So with Taylor, I look at it right now. The dead cap right now is 34 if they were to get rid of him, but next year it's only 7. So I think they kind of eat this year.
So you gotta eat the year. Woof.
Yeah, you gotta eat the year.
That's tough. That's tough. Not a great signing by them. He's just not been very good. Also, the penalties, the MF and penalties. It is nonstop with that guy.
Yeah. But then also too, they have 3 players on the defensive side of the ball who have to get paid. Trent McDuffie, who, look, he did not have a good Super Bowl. I just don't think people talk about it enough. AJ Brown was just like, running them routes.
He did have a tough game. He had a tough game, and that was it. It's all right because it's his like second tough game of the year.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, like, but the entire team had a tough day, so it kind of gets lost. But yes, he did not have a good afternoon or good
Not
evening.
not Kyler Elam in the AFC Championship tough, but still.
My goodness, now that's one of those DB performances you will never forget. You're like, dang, I will never forget where I was when Kyrie Elam was getting absolutely murdered out there. He is. I just can't believe how bad he is. It's so crazy.
And he literally said too on like when he was going to Buffalo, like, I'm reading the playbook with me, I'm doing all this, and it's just like, dude can't even get on the field anymore.
Yeah.
But with the Patriots too, though, because I know we had the Javon Holland talk with you drinking the water, which if you 36 minutes of that episode, you, Sophie, and I. But I was looking today, basically they posted, hey, who's the best for cap and the worst for cap? For us with the Patriots, the Bills and the Dolphins are both bottom 5 cap. The other teams are New Orleans, obviously, Cleveland, and Seattle. So that's the other hope too. Like, I know New Orleans is like minus 15. I think the Bills are like minus 15 to 20 where they're over, but then it's New England singing their praises at actually I'll pull up the graphic because literally it's just I don't know if you've ever seen this Twitter account, but there's a Twitter account called @The Simpsons NFL where basically they just take Simpsons clips and they rotate it for there. So here it is. So the least caps. Saints are at 60 million over. Browns are at 34.2, which good lord. Seahawks at minus 19, Bills at minus 17.9, and then the Dolphins at minus 15.8 million. So that's where, you know what, your Javon Holland dreams can come true. I didn't realize this till today, but the Raiders have 92.6 million in cap, and then we have a comfortable 122.
Yes. So the cap issue, and it's interesting to call it an issue because they have so much, but
and 44 of 53 current active roster members signed to a contract going into this year.
I think my issue with the setup this year, because the Patriots should be set up with as much cap as they have to like really do what they want and spend some money. It just so happens that the positions that they need just aren't really going to be available, right? They need help on the offensive line. They need help at wide receiver. Those guys are just not going to be, available in free agency. Yeah. Now, the other issue is that
they're going to sign people and it's going to piss off our fan base.
Well, we know that's going to happen. The other issue is that the teams in the league that have similar needs to us also have a ton of money. So it's just like, yeah, you're like, oh yes, we have all this money and we need a wide receiver. But the Raiders also have a ton of money and need a wide receiver. So it's like, I think, in other years where the Patriots could flex that big cap number and really get active in free agency as far as spending money goes. I think the fact that other teams have similar needs and as much money kind of waters down free agency a little bit. Just because they're going to be guys that they're going to miss out on because another team was able to offer both, equal amount of money and a better situation, around them.
One team that really scares me for a certain position of need?
Where?
Chicago and offensive line.
Yeah. Yeah, because they can spend if they want to spend.
Because they can spend if they want to spend. They have I always kind of felt old when players were younger than me, or there's a lot of these 2000 born players getting drafted. No. When the new offensive coordinator in Chicago and Jacksonville are under the age of 30,
yeah,
that's where I started feeling old. But they have, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's bringing in, I forget his last name, but Declan something. And then there's the kid Grant in Jacksonville with Liam Cohen. But that's the thing with Chicago where it's like, hey, they need offensive line. You can tell if they make the right moves, they're going to be ready to go. They also have $64 million in cap to spend. And they just know, like, look, they're probably going to go out there and they're probably going to offer Trey Smith. They can offer him $25 million a year. They can do whatever it is Ronnie Stanley wants. So that's where it's like, be careful, Patriots, because I don't think it's so much of them not trying. I think it's just the usual situation, like what happened with like the DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Brandon Ayuk, where it's just, hey, they want to go to a better position where they're going to get paid better. I don't know what the tax situation is in Illinois, but the Bears really have to beef up an offensive line, considering, look, that's probably the best division of football going into next year. So that's with New England where you have to be, I don't want to say careful. It's just not getting your hopes up. And I'll feel like people are going to be, it's like, well, they have all this money, they can't spend it. It's just like, well, they're going to spend it. It's just, I think people can't expect to happen in 21 just to happen, where I also don't think Elliott Wolf's going to operate like that, where it's just, hey, you get $20 million and you get 20 million and you get 20 million. You know, it's not going to be handing out contracts like Oprah. There's going to be a few signings. It's going to annoy some people. Man, it is what it is. Although I will say this right now. I do want to see Antonio Gibson back.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's on a 3-year deal. So
right. I thought he was
he'll
on a
be
1-year deal.
available. He'll be back.
My bad. I thought he was on a 1-year deal. Oh,
no.
It's him and Hooper I mixed up. That's my bad.
Yes, Hooper is going to be gone. I'm not sure if I want him back, but I digress. I think the Patriots, obviously, I agree with you. I think they are going to be able to spend a lot of money, or they're going to have the ability to spend a lot of money. I just don't know that they will, because I think they're still going to look at things in terms of value. And I know no one likes to hear the word value because, they hear value, they hear cheap, but you're not going to go out and spend $20 million on, a receiver who is not worth $20 million just to say, hey, we spent $20 million on a receiver. Like things like that don't make a ton of sense to me. And I know that it's going to come up this year where people are going to say like, hey, the Patriots have all this money. They should have, spent $20 million on this guy. And it's going to, I feel like it's going to be important for people to like kind of understand like, hey, the team isn't going to get all crazy with their money just because they have the money to spend. I know a lot of people, that's what a lot of people would like, but that's not what's going to happen. So just kind of temper your expectations, especially when it comes to offensive linemen. Everyone's kind of like, hey, we're going to just like sign a starting left tackle in free agency. And I'm like, where are they? Because like I don't see them. I know right now the favorite that I've seen with the people I talk to, everyone's like really into Alaric Jackson from the Rams.
Yeah.
Okay, like whatever. I don't see that being like a realistic like we can sign him and we're all set at tackle. We don't have to address the position anymore. I think whoever they sign this offseason on that offensive line, they're going to be stopgap kind of options. I honestly do think the Patriots are going to be looking to draft a couple other, a few more linemen. And I know they just took 2 last year in Lane Robinson and Caden Wallace, but they don't have a starting right tackle on the roster right now. They have a middling starting left tackle as far as Vidarian Logos. So no matter if they go out and sign Alaric Jackson or whatever, it's like cool. You still need to draft a guy, and I think that's what we're going to see. I just don't know that there are going to be options there. And I do know for a fact there will not be options at wide receiver. I think people really, really need to cool their jets on the wide receiver situation because it's not going to be real pretty.
Yeah, because especially I know like guys I was just looking at contracts because there's 2 linemen from the Vikings that stood out to me, although one's a guard and Dalton Reisner. If you want to do that from the right side, you sign Reisner to a cheap stopgap deal, have him play right guard and then kick a winning left tackle. But we all know how that kind of went last year. No, my thing with wide receiver always was too, and I kind of got off Higgins a few weeks. I think I messaged you to this. I messaged other people. I kind of got off Higgins because I was just like, hey, do we realistically want to pay someone who's a 1B or a 2, 30 to 35? I'm like, I don't really know if I do. But also do for the whole, it's like, oh, just trade him. And I'm like, okay, do you know what you're going to have to pay to get him? Like you said, 2 first-round picks. No. Patriots aren't in the position to be making trades like that. If it's a situation like, Buffalo was in when they went on and got Diggs and, hey, we're going to pair a star with that next year. Because if Drake is a year next year to where the Patriots are, and this is all I ask right now, be in the playoff conversation come the beginning of December. I'm not saying you have to make it. Do what the Cardinals just did last year, where, you kind of
stay on the graphic all year.
Stay on the graphic.
In the hunt the whole time.
In the hunt. And it's like, oh, look, we're there. Give us that false sense of hope. So then you miss it. And then you go into next offseason being like, hey, this is when we trade for a weapon. This is when we go out and get the guy we want. Because even when you see, like, for example, DK Metcalf, which I know with Patriot Reporters has been a big name, Alex Barth, friend of the show, to go out there and get a guy like him, are we sure he's going to want to come here? That's the big question.
I thought we knew for a fact he didn't. I thought they asked him, like, hey, would you want to play there? And he's like, no, great organization, but like, nah, man. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's a bitch here in the winter.
See, so that's which I don't know what your snow situation is right now, but I know me, I was like digging out of it all weekend. But that's the thing with the wide receiver position right now, where it's just they don't grow on trees. I know if they go out there and get Cooper Cup, everyone's gonna be like, oh, this. It's just like it's like we say, there's gonna be the people right now that are gonna disagree with a move when it happens.
Yep.
But unless there's a GM out there who does a stupid move like Bill O'Brien did with the DeAndre Hopkins trade or what the Dan Morgan Panthers did last year to get rid of Brian Burns did, it's going to be tampered expectations. It's still, and this is the point I was trying to make with the DK Metcalf was the fact that if Drake goes out there this year, gets them to a 7-10 record, let's say, let's just throw 7-10 out there because it's a fun number that keeps them, in the graphic till around just before Christmas.
Yeah.
When, the joke is when men start Christmas shopping. If you stay in the hunt till then, the next offseason, it's kind of, hey, you get Drake the piece. The rest of the team's kind of building the foundation around him to where, hey, now it's go time. Now he's in his third year. Let's see what he can really do with the weapon provided. So that's where I think honestly is going to happen, unless they shock us and do something crazy. That's just the only thing is I don't know if Elliott Wolf's up to that yet. And if they don't spend money, I want people to say this where it's like, oh, they're being cheap. Do we not realize Robert Kraft builds everything with his own money around the stadium? So that's one thing I'm going to say right now. I think we've talked about this, but the fact that they're building a training center, I think speaks volumes on where he wants this organization to go or get back to.
Yeah. People are gonna call him cheap anyway. That's just kind of, I'm just kind of expecting that to happen. And it is what it is. That's not really gonna bug me. I just, I'm hopeful that they participate in free agency. That would be sick. Like, you don't have to go out and get me like a big name guy, but I hope they participate. Because we saw last year.
McCarry?
Yes, I like him. Obviously, I think I've tweeted that before. He's like a super lineman. He can play everywhere. I think he's played everywhere except center. He can like play everywhere. So yeah, why not? Right? You sign him and you have yourself either a right tackle, or a right guard, and probably or a left tackle, right? So you can have him at all those positions. All of those positions are up for grabs. So you have one guy. I think a player like that just makes sense. As far as how you want to construct your offensive line room, because like, all right, cool. We know we have Michael Nwenu at right guard. That's going to be fine. And we have Patrick McCarry we can put at any other spot, and we'll be fine. That leaves us 3 holes to fill instead of 4. Player like that, I like it.
Do we think left guard is Strange is the left guard going into the year, or do you think he's got to earn it?
No. I think Strange is your back. But I also like hottish take. I think by the end of training camp, he's probably your starting center, because I have questions about David Andrews. I know he wants to play, but I almost wonder if it's a Rob Ninkovich situation with him, where he kind of gets back and just doesn't have it anymore. Because I know I'm lower on him than most Patriots fans in general, but I thought he played really poorly this year. And it wasn't just the guys around him. He was just like not playing well individually. And I think you add a shoulder injury that knocked him out for the season to that, and being another year older. Love the guy. Love what he's done for the Patriots. I love what he's meant for the Patriots.
We'll have a red jacket one day.
Yeah, absolutely. But right now it might be he might be in his Travis Kelce era, where it's like, yeah, you're real close to sucking, brother. like it's not, you're not too far. So I think Strange is probably your starting center by the end of training camp. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, even though she's not here, we still managed to say the word era. The fact too with David Andrews as well, I completely agree with you. Look, great character guy, great locker room person to have. Just I think it's one of those things where he thinks he has it, but I don't know if it's truly, truly there.
Yeah.
So with him, it's just like it's one of those ones that it's gonna suck for Patriots fans, kind of like Slater, where and And look, I know there's that thing with Vrabel where he's saying all people are welcome. It's like, didn't you just kick Slater out? It's like, look, that's a coaching capacity. Slater's always going to be around the organization no matter what. I believe he's in Mass full time. But with Andrews, I think it's the same sort of thing where he will still be connected with the team even though he is retired. Because I know he does that podcast with Hoyer.
Yeah.
Andrew Callahan had that great interview with him last year where he went fishing with him, which I still thought was amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think with Andrews, it's just one of those things where I could see him even getting in like a random, like, a March 24th news dump where it's just like, hey, dust settles, like, the whole quiet quitting expression that's used. I'm not saying quitting, but you know what I mean? It's like, hey,
Yeah.
Guy that retires out of nowhere where it's like, oh, yeah, hey, he's retiring. Like, I could see
So the
being
reason I
that
said
where
end of training camp, because I think those happen so much more frequently in like July when guys start reporting for camp and they're like, oh no, this can't happen. Like, and they just don't have it anymore to like continue. And you're like, okay, cool. So I could see it like in the middle of like July or like the first couple weeks of July. It's just like, yeah, David Andrews gonna call it quits.
does mini camp and then it's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go fishing. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
I'm gonna go hang out with my wife.
exactly.
Wife needs me home now.
I'm gonna be
Yeah,
a family man.
yeah. Yeah. So then if you have Strange so here's the thing too you can do. You have Strange at center, you have Owenu at right guard, you have McCary at right tackle. You can sign Dalton Reisner, kick him at left, and then left tackle. I think that's where you use your second round draft pick on because, and I'll say this still, and I believe we said this before, but I still think that whole, the Titans are going to get Abdul Carter. That's more of a smoke signal, I think, to get a team like the Patriots to move up and pay an exorbitant price for it, but I don't think that they're going to do it. Because I still think at the end of the day, when it comes to the draft, in the 60 or so, I think, let's see. Right now that's 61. Let's carry the 66 days until the draft. For context there, I was using math with, I know you don't watch WWE, but WrestleMania is the week before the draft, and there are 61 days as of last night, and I know 5 days there. So it is. That's how I got my draft. That was my draft.
Whatever works, man. Whatever works.
Yeah, it works for me. But that's what I was thinking about because I think right now if the draft order doesn't change, you're gonna have I think it's still Cam Ward 1. I think it's Shador 2. It's the Giants at 3. I think if a quarterback that they like goes, that's where a team moves up to get someone. Because I can't just see the Giants going, you know what, we're going to get Ted McMillan or Travis Hunter and go because you're asking to win 3 games again. It's like, hey, you're going to look amazing. You're also going to suck. So I do think that if a team wants to move up to get someone, they're the team to move back. If a quarterback goes 1-2, then you have the Patriots at 4, where it's open season.
Yeah, I think being third in the draft is exactly where you want to be. I think that's where you just want to be, right? Especially in this class where you have it's a 2 quarterback class. That's where you want to be.
Don't forget about your boy Jackson. Don't forget about your boy Jackson there.
It's a 2 quarterback class. I think he's going to go higher than most people are ready for, but it's mostly 2 guys.
Yeah.
So I think being third there kind of lets you start the draft, right? You're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to take the first non quarterback, and if you want a specific guy in Abdul Carter, you better come get him. And I think that's why a lot of Patriots fans were, obviously annoyed. Well, they were annoyed because they wanted the 1 overall, but then obviously being 4th from there, it's kind of a tough spot to be in with the win in week 18.
It's like the hold your breath position.
Yeah, you're like, we're not going to get like the guy we want or whatever. But I think it doesn't matter anyways. I think, honestly, if it is a scenario where Carter goes and Hunter goes in those first 3 picks, I might just endorse go ahead and trade down. And I know everyone hates trading down. Everyone, this is the worst. Take the guy, get the talent. I get it. But the Patriots have enough needs that it just makes sense to take more shots. Like, we just need more guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are just not enough guys. We need more men. Like, you know what I mean? And so it just makes sense, I think, if Abdul Carter isn't there and Travis Hunter isn't there, it just makes sense to move down. I know people kind of like Tet McMillan. I'm not a Tet guy. I don't love the skill set. It kind of reminds me of Drake London. And obviously he's a good player, and I think Tet is going to be a good player as well. I just think there's better value to be found at that 4 pick than a Tet McMillan. So I'm like, trade down and take a Matthew Golden out of Texas and let's ride. Like, that's what I'm here for.
There's another player I have in mind for something similar.
Who do you have?
Emeka Ibuka.
Okay, yes. If you can move down to like the 18-ish range, for sure. For sure. Right now, though, my draft crush is Matthew Golden. That's why I went with him. But Emeka Ibuka makes sense to me.
I also love the name.
It'll be nice to have Ohio State players back on the menu, because the Patriots just never drafted those guys. I think they traded for a couple, but I don't think they've ever drafted one under Bill. And obviously, I think that's going to change with Mike Vrabel, his alma mater. I think that makes that's a really good connection there. Might that be the likeliest if they trade down?
He's a guy I would love to see fall to the 20s. I just don't think it's going to happen. Or the other option is, suck for a couple more years and then just get Jeremiah Smith with the first overall pick.
Yeah, that guy's going to be insane. And then Ryan Williams out of Alabama as well.
He just turned 18. I didn't realize that. I'm like,
yeah,
he is
babies,
young.
babies.
He was born when I was in the 8th grade. Good
Lord. That's nasty. You shouldn't say that out loud. Mind you, I'm older than you, so like
you got me by a year.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, like I said, I've been dealing with this cough. No, I like I said, Emeka Ibuka, it's a fun name to say. Isaiah Bond's there as well, but I think he's a day 2 guy.
Yeah, I think taking Isaiah Bond in the first round would be an error.
I could see a world where there's a run on wide receivers, so it's like a panic draft by a team where it's like
I could see that too, and it just not working out for them.
Yeah,
the expectations are going to be higher than what I think the immediate results are going to be. You know what I mean? I think people are going to expect him to be up here, and he's going to come in like up here, which is still pretty high, but like there's going to be a gap there.
It's like Jermaine Burton, but without all the off-field BS.
Holy smokes, that guy, huh? Golly. Because that was a player I was really excited about him. Like, he's going to Cincy. They have the best wide receiver room in the league, yada, yada, yada. And guy can't even get on the field because he can't, like, what was he doing? He was like,
he's out of casino.
Yeah, and, man, you kind of just hope it comes together for him. But that's, I don't know, I might be asking a lot.
Yeah. There's also, too, I'm just looking at the offensive line class right now because we all know Banks and Campbell are right there as well. Josh Simmons is another name to watch for, I think, for the Patriots later in the draft if they want to trade back into the first round if someone starts to fall.
Yeah.
Also, too, Luther Burton's another name to watch for wide receiver, but I think he kind of goes in that Ibuka range, like the 15 to 18.
Yeah, and I like Burton. I think
he's got height, but I don't know if he's got the skill of some of the other guys.
Yeah, I want someone more explosive in terms of just like blow you away athleticism if you're going to be picking them early in the first. But obviously, I think his floor is really good. I think as far as Josh Simmons goes, though, it's interesting because I'm so curious to see how high he goes. Right, I think the injury kind of puts a damper on it, but I think he could be a really good like draft and stash kind of guy. But I almost wonder if he falls to day 2 as a result of the injury.
You know what? It will, and then someone's going to get him, and he's going to look great. And it's like
some GM's going to look like an absolute genius for drafting him.
It's like I know he hasn't had the bet. He didn't have his name wasn't called a lot this year, but it's like JOK back in 2021 and that was legit injury concerns because he had the heart issues. But then I still remember that one where it was like he kept falling, and then someone else will fall in that draft, but it didn't work out. Ronnie Perkins, where I wanted him to work out so badly for New England,
and the minute he went down his rookie year, the minute he ended up on IR, I was like, oh, that's going to be it for his career. Like, that's just not going to look good for the rest. Like, and true to form, although he had a couple of good games in Denver.
Yes. The one thing I'd love to do too with a lot of these speedsters as well, it's kind of like what the Broncos got in Marvin Mims, where it's like, hey, not his first year, you see the flashes, but it's the year, it's 2026 when he really pops, because I've been saying this with the Patriots forever. I don't know if I'm ready to fire this takeoff yet, but I still have a feeling of who the wide receiver one's going to be this year.
Go ahead. Fire away.
I think it's going to be Booty. I don't know why. I know it's I just from who's on the active roster.
Yeah, for the guys who are here right now. Absolutely. Yeah,
The ones that are here.
It. Yep.
Because it kind of, and also too, I've gone back and watched it. That touchdown catch in the Buffalo game, like,
yeah, absolutely just murdering Kyrie Lamb once again. Yeah, I don't know. I'm weird with Booty because I think he had himself a good year, obviously, and he kind of showed you why he was getting that first round hype a few years ago. Like he had those sparks. My only thing is I think he's so inconsistent. He's just like never exactly where you think he's gonna be, or he's not exactly doing what you think he's gonna do. You're like, okay, cool. He's gonna be able to run this football down, and then he's not able to run the football down. You're like, okay. Or he's gonna be able to make this contested catch, and then he gets bodied out of the way, and you're like, huh. But last week you did it no problem. Like what went wrong? So I don't know. I'm curious. I'm so curious on him though. I think if the Patriots have a good offseason, I think he is gone. If they're able to do a little more at wide receiver, I think he is gone. Just because I think Jalen Polk's draft status is going to buy him time, obviously. I think Javon Baker, we'll see. But other than that, like you have Pop Douglas, who's obviously very good. I just think if they add two receivers, two guys who you're like positive will stick on the roster, that we're talking about five guys there. Who's the odd man out? It's him and Baker, right? Like, him or Baker. And I almost wonder if they give Baker the nod there, because of they just drafted him. Although fourth round isn't like you don't have to keep a fourth rounder. You really don't.
Which is another thing. Like I think Kevin Harris is gone from the roster this year. I don't think he's on even the practice squad. I think
that's probably over.
Yeah. No, I just say Kayshon Boutte just because, like, when I look at the rest of the roster, and I still think this, Pop Douglas is always going to be there, but hopefully he can be your X. We'll see. We'll see if that works out because the Patriots need someone at that X position badly. I like Kendrick Bourne, but he seems like a flash and pop guy where he'll have a game where he's good, and then he has a couple games where it's just like, where did Kendrick go?
Yeah.
I say Boutte just because it felt like him and Drake were building the most chemistry this year because as a deep ball threat. Yep. That's why I say that. Also, I did look this up too while you were talking. Another wide receiver, if they want to get late Friday or early Saturday, Tez Johnson's another name that's out there as well.
Yeah. He's just a little light. That's my only issue with him. He's a little obviously he's not a big guy, right? Only 5'9". I think he goes like 150 or 160 or something crazy where you're like, oh, that's a regular man height. Like that. He's built like a regular guy. Like he can't be an NFL player. So that's my concern with Tez Johnson. I'm just like, he's small. And I think they already have a small guy in Pop Douglas. They're just like, we just have a small dude who's just gonna do what he do. But obviously, I think Tez can provide more explosion than Pop Douglas. I don't know that you want to build the offense with too many little fellas.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the Bill Belichick days anymore.
Right.
Yeah. No, I look at names. I say that there's also the kid out of Iowa State whose name I'm blanking on right now, but a lot of Patriots fans are in love with.
Is it Higgins? Jaden? Is it Higgins?
I think so. I've seen him on a lot of the mocks. That the one, I think it's the 115th pick the Patriots have. That's the one where, and look, and I always say names like Tez Johnson too because it's like I think they can afford to take flyers on a wide receiver in that round, and if it doesn't work out, it's just like Javon Baker where it's just you move past it. I do agree with you. I do agree with you about Jalen Polk. I think he does get a fair. I don't even want to say he was bad. I just think that for where he was drafted and what he was expected to do, And it's also the fact too that, you know, another Washington Husky played better than him, and he went, I believe, in the 4th or 5th round in Jalen McMillan.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I think there's a potential for Chris Godwin, because you have Mike Evans, you have Jalen McMillan. That's why.
But they have absolutely no one behind those two.
But that's
what
the
do you
thing.
do? Sterling Shepard? Like, you'd rather just make it happen with Marquise Goodwin. Like, I think Polk is interesting because I wonder if it would feel as bad as it does if he wasn't so unpopular with the fans. And I think that's a big thing. People want him out like now. They're like, oh, he needs to go. And I'm like, whatever.
It looks
like,
worse though if he goes somewhere else and performs, and it's like,
right.
You know, hey, you were a second round pick. You went to this team. You look better there now. It looks worse on Wolf to get rid of him than to keep him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's, like I said, I think he's safe. I think he's going to have a chance. I think Javon Baker, man, if he can show us anything, that would be sick. If he could show us anything,
he needs to have a good preseason.
Yeah, I think if he just has a good preseason, I think it makes the decision between him and Booty like kind of moot. I think it's just you roll with the young explosive upside. If they're both going to be guys down the depth chart anyway, because I think what we're talking about here is, again, if the Patriots have the offseason I think they need to have, Kayshon Boutte is going to be your 4th receiver. You know, like it. We're talking about guys at the bottom of the depth chart here. I think at that point you would just go with explosion, right? You would just go with the more explosive guy, even though Bootie's the more consistent player. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a long off season. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's just that's what this kind of thing is what we needed to do, because like I said to open the show, my wife's like, "There's nothing to talk about. You and I just got through a freaking hour just talking about randomness and fun." But the other point I want to make, and look, the NFL released Super Bowl dates coming out, which I don't know what you did Friday night, but I've already warned my wife that 2 years from now, Valentine's Day is Super Bowl Sunday, which, hey, I'll say this too. An 18th game of football is a lot of fun. Look, you see everything behind me that relates to it. I'm actually wearing my CFL hoodie tonight. They pull off 18 games, but they have 3 bye weeks. I'm not asking the NFL to do that, but if they are serious about player safety, you do 20 weeks, 18 games, 2 bye weeks. But I think the more important question is, because you know how for the 18th game, the 17th game, they just said like, hey, you're going to play this division, this place.
Yeah.
What do you do for game 18? Do you play another AFC team? Do you throw another random NFC matchup in there where it's like, hey, you go to one AFC, you go to an extra NFC comes to you, and you go to an extra NFC?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. It makes more sense than throwing in another AFC team. I just think you play whatever team you will play the year after next, right? Because the opponents are on a schedule, and the way it is like you play whatever NFC team you played 2 years ago that finishes in the same spot as far as divisions go. So the Patriots played, the Cardinals in 22.
Kyler Murray tore his ACL.
Yes, because they played the NFC West in 2020. So we knew that was coming up. So maybe it'll be the same thing, but going forward, like, hey, what team do you play in 2 years from there? Although, wouldn't that just bring it all the way around? I don't fucking know. Math is hard, but you just pick whatever, obviously, the Patriots this year, they're playing the NFC East, right?
They're playing the Giants.
Yeah, so we're playing the East. Next year, this past year, we played the West. Next year, we'll play the North. So I think in a situation like that,
we're playing the South this year. Excuse me, we're playing the South, and then we play the North next year.
Okay, so in that situation, if we had an 18th game this year, it would be against whatever NFC East team finished in the same spot as us, which I believe would have been the Giants.
Yep. So this year they play home to the Panthers and the Falcons. They go to the Saints, which I'm looking to go to, and the Bucks, and then the Giants come to Foxborough. So I think then maybe they play the 4th place from the North, which would be the Bears.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Something like that. I think that probably makes the most sense.
Yeah. And then I think you still do it where you start. And I know everyone says, preseason, cutting the preseason by 2 games is still not the best opportunity for there. But I think going into the season, unless someone truly wows, how often, the Hard Knocks darling, more than likely than not, those guys don't make the roster to begin with. So I don't think,
Right. And the guys that do just don't play all year. They're
yeah,
just like bouncing around, just hanging around. They play like 7 snaps on the year.
exactly. So that's why I think if you just do 2 preseason games, start Labor Day weekend, which for me, I have a bit of a problem with just because for the CFL, that's their American Thanksgiving style week where it's like, rivalry games, season truly starts.
Yeah.
Like, hey, everything from before you can get rid of, just focus on the future. So I think you do it where you do that, and then I've been hearing people say that, look, the NFL is going to play every day of the week. I don't think they'll ever do that, like where we get
No.
Tuesday nights.
Nope.
But I do think Christmas Day is not going anywhere. I honestly,
Yeah, I think that's an NFL holiday now.
I love how it's just like, no, NBA, we're taking this from you. Like, it's just, and the fact they did the petty thing of like Netflix too, where it's just like, you can't even change you have to like get out of the streaming service to go to cable or like to go to find the game.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, nope, sucks to be you. Because next year Christmas is on a Thursday, which I think you pull off 3 games, no problem. But what I would do though is instead of having them play Sunday to Thursday, have them play Saturday so you get them that extra day.
Again, if you're serious about player safety, you do that anyway. But do we know if the NFL is?
Because I will say this though, I do think an 18th game doesn't happen unless there's a second bye week. I do think the players union is going to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Which I do think, and I was saying this to myself today because I want to say this to you now. I do think we will know before the start of this regular season though, and for us sickos, there is something called the league meetings coming up at the end of March.
Yeah.
So
we'll have the inkling from then, the whispers of like what was talked about, who proposed what. Best part of that is always the rule changes, and we're like, oh yeah, so and so proposed some rule change. I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, like it's like, and I'll say this too: the kickoff rules, like whatever. Now it's just in when I play. It's actually right here in front of me because I was using this as a prop last week. Whenever I play this with the kickoff rule, it is super weird.
Yeah.
Whenever I play,
but watching it feels fine. I'm like, oh, okay, like
it grew.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll say too is why I think, because like right now we've seen with other sports where like NBA All-Star Weekend, didn't watch a lick of it. NHL,
Not even a little bit.
4 Nations face-off, which has been spectacular to watch. There was always the talk for them too of why don't they want to do it in September? And there was 2 reasons. One was because it makes the season longer for the players. The second was because they knew they'd get killed in the ratings by the NFL because they recognize.
Wow.
Because the NFL, I love how everyone like treats the NFL like the popular kid, where it's just like, hey, they're gonna do their thing. Because my dad was explaining this to my uncle on Super Bowl Sunday, where it's like, I'll watch a random like an NFL Thursday night game with the cover athlete or Christian McCaffrey. I remember because I recorded and I watched the end of the game, and it was LA San Francisco, and that game ended, and it was 12-6, and I was like, why did I just watch that? And it's like, oh, it's football. Like, I'm not going to do the same thing where it was like the LA Kings and the San Jose Sharks or like the Clippers, like the Lakers and the Warriors, even though those teams are like, the leader markets. It's just the fact, too, that I think everyone kind of recognizes where it's like, hey, NFL is going to do their thing. NFL is what it is. Like, we know now they're great. But look, there's a reason why this is a football podcast and another sport. Because look, it's February.
The NFL is king, baby.
It is. Also say this too for the league meetings note. I know everyone out there right now is like, oh, what's this? What's this? Look, that's when I say sickos pay attention to league meetings is because a lot of the stuff that gets talked about there, like we'll know about, and then it's like, oh yeah, this rule's happening, and then like you realize in August it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's coming into effect.
Yeah.
But no, I just say that with the league meetings because like how Rodgers said at the Super Bowl, and then he's going to try to gain traction with the owners, where it's like, hey guys, because he's just going to go to them and say, hey, more money, because we all know all 32 owners end the season winning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There are no losers in the NFL owners business.
I also didn't realize that I don't know if expansion is going to happen too. I still think the London stuff is silly. Unless they want to put like I think at least 4 teams in Europe, which
I've had that same thought where it only makes sense if you're expanding by more than one. I don't think one makes any sense. And to your point, having all those teams in England or in Europe in general, you want those guys to be able to play because you want those guys to be able to play each other. Because you just don't need everyone flying across the country every week, flying across the world every week to play division games. That doesn't make any sense. I don't really see it happening though. I don't think it's something that's going to happen.
I think they're just going to keep adding on international games, which
I agree.
I don't have. I know everyone's like, oh, it's too many. I don't have a problem with it when you do more than just London. Like, I like how it's like, hey, we're getting a game in Spain, we're getting Germany, we're getting Ireland, we're getting England.
We're getting Australia.
Yes, which for a while was a weird rumor, and then it disappeared. And then the Rams are one of the teams which I think makes the most sense to have a team like LA going to Australia.
Yeah.
The other one too is I know they did Tokyo years ago. I think in like 2005. I remember. I think it was the Colts and the Falcons. But yeah, it's like baseball does it too. Or baseball sometimes they'll open the season and like they've opened in Japan, they've opened in Korea, they've gone to Australia. But that's what I think is just going to keep happening. They're just going to keep going to random places. They're just going to keep playing games. And I think it's just more like, hey, it's your turn to go. I said this too. Patriots were in them in the last 2 years. I don't need Patriots going to Europe. I don't need it. I don't think you and I, we can wake up and watch a game that doesn't affect our rest of our day and our mental health. Because I remember, so I live across the street from a mall, and I remember after that Patriots Jags game, everyone's walking around normal, and I'm like, wow, everyone's having a great day, and here I am with my mental health in the shitter because my football team sucks. Oh, and also to add that note too, Sophie's credit cards don't need them going back to Europe.
No, for sure.
She said it. That she has said it on the record, by the way.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think international games are fun in the week leading up to it, but like when the game actually gets played, I honestly forget that they're like in Europe because I'm not paying attention to the sites or whatever. So I'm just like, whatever, like I'm just watching the football. So I think they're cool, but it's just like, I don't know. Most of the time I just zone out on the fact that it's there unless something weird happens and they do like, like they call attention to. Because I remember this year it was like anytime they did Sweet Caroline overseas, the broadcast would call specific attention to that. I think those are the only times that I realized like, oh yes, we're watching the London game. But other than that, I'm like, whatever. Like they're just playing football.
Country Roads Take Me Home. That's the other one. Yeah, because I know in Germany they made a huge deal of that. Now it's like whenever they play in Germany, it's like, hey, here's John Denver, and it's like these fans just singing the songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that happens. I know everyone talks about it. I don't think they go beyond 32 teams. I think it's just, hey,
I think 32 is like the perfect number, but I think that's also just because that's what I'm used to. So like, obviously I'm just going to like, oh, it's the perfect number, but it does 4 teams, 4 divisions. It makes sense.
I have you ever seen the graphics online where it's just like, here's what it looks like if it's geographical, and it's like Jets, Giants, and Patriots and Eagles, and I'm like, I would kill myself. The online discourse that was our division. I'm just like, good Lord, I don't need to deal. I deal with those teams enough online. I don't need to deal with them playing them every year.
Yeah,
because like I looked at that, it was like, and it's like different divisions who it's like, here's this Pacific division, here's the Big Sky, which I'm like, that's a mediocre college division. Here's like the Northeast, here's the Great Lakes. It's like the funny one is the fact the NFC North stays the same and every other division gets scrambled. The only actual division change I would ever make is I would put the Colts in the East and move the Dolphins to the South.
Yes, I think that one's that's an obvious one. I don't think it makes sense to have the Dolphins in the East. Obviously, we understand why it is what it is, but I'm with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I like I said, Joe, 32 is easy, and also the fact that they haven't done expansion in over almost 25 years. I don't think they're going to start now.
Yeah.
I know it's like, hey, they could go to San Antonio, they could go to Portland, they could go back to Oakland. I'm just like, I think those days of the NFL are done. I think they have their teams in place, they have the owners in place, even though Seattle will probably be sold in the next few years. Chicago's another one to watch out for.
Right, with the passing of McCaskey.
Which I still say this: if you live to 102, that's just you. It's still sad for the family, but that's
it's time.
People are saying it's like, oh, she saw all this stuff and yet never saw an Embiid conference final. Dude, whenever that stuff happens, and it's that meme of Drewski running away, where it's like James Daniels made it to the conference finals before Joel Embiid. It's just like, oh my god. But we've got a lot more to talk about in the offseason. I think next week is going to be. I think next week's when the true draft process begins with the combine, because not only does McGarvin get his hot wings, but you finally get a sense of what these players are. And I can't wait for someone to run a 40 and be like, he's going to be awesome. He ran a 4.43 flat, or it's like, this guy's not athletic. He ran a 4.7. It's just like,
Yeah.
Can you run a 4.7? No. So shut up. So it's that where it's just like next week too. And also I still say this too, but next week is when the tampering begins.
Oh, most certainly. Most certainly. That's when you start to pay attention to whatever rumors you hear with regards to trades and, who's interested in who. I think those kind of things right now are way premature when they're like, oh, this team's going to end up with this guy. Just wait till next week. You're going to hear it. And those you can go ahead and believe.
When those reports start coming is when the smoke really attracts the fire. It's really, or the fire gets attracted to the smoke, where it's just like, hey, this is what you can believe. So when like you start hearing next week of like, hey, this player is going to happen, this is going to happen here. That's next week is when that really picks up. For now, it's all just talk and fodder.
Yep.
By the end of next week, I think we're going to have a clearer idea of who's going to go when, who's going to go where, and who's going to sign with who.
And it's also the time where we start to hear about guys being extended, guys that are going to stick around with their team, or conversely, guys who are going to be on their way out. So we'll see as far as like cap casualties and things of that sort. So we'll see. We'll have a better sense next week on who was realistically going to be available. Like earlier tonight, we got the report that Javon Holland won't be franchise tagged by Miami. These are the kind of things that you wait on. That kind of changes the conversation.
If he does sign in New England, I am going to post that video of you. Just it's that there's the two videos I think of that are like almost all timers with you and I, and also our third friend Sophie. That, and when you like, so there's that. There's my Zach Wilson joke, and there is you laughing at her Twitter handle where she explains why she had to go the 2 E's and 2 R's. So it's like those three videos. So each of us all have our moment on the show. But no, we also saw too with Miami. They have a lot of cap issues. They've got, and this is why I still hold positive for New England, because when you look at and I know I'm rambling now, and we've been going on for almost 75 minutes. Buffalo's still good. They just have to figure out they have to figure out what's going to kick them to the next gear. I don't think they're a bad team. Nope. Also, I still say this. I think Josh Allen was the right call for MVP. I know Lamar had the better stats, but
yeah, sure. I don't really feel strongly either way. I personally
just don't like people saying Mickey Mouse MVP. I just don't like
that. Well, no, those, I mean, it's not like he was undeserving because he was, right? Like it's I personally would have voted Lamar, but I don't think Lamar was robbed, if that makes sense. Like personally, I'm like, I take it, but if you're like, hey, it's Josh Allen, I'm not gonna fight you on that. Like, yeah, okay, probably. Like, sure. I think that the argument is strong enough in either direction that the outcome didn't really bug me.
I just think that it was the value of Josh for his team was greater. That's just my argument, where I think it's what would Buffalo would be if Josh wasn't what he was this year. That's just my argument with it.
And especially because down the stretch, he was like unstoppable. Like as a runner, was just unstoppable, just imposing his will. So I'm not mad at it.
He wanted to do this and became Goku. So that's
yes, good for him. He got there.
Yeah, he got on one knee, and then he's just like, I'm going Super Saiyan 9000 on you.
I'm with it.
Except against the Patriots. And then Miami's in flux, and the Jets is just that we're waiting for that. Look, I like the press conference from Aaron Glenn, but I'm waiting for them to do the stupid move, where it's like, is Jordan Travis your guy? Which, if he is, all the best to you. But yeah, it's New England really can just take advantage of not a weak division, but there's the two teams last year that had huge expectations, which this year shouldn't have a lot of expectations. So that's where it's kind of like, be the surprise. I'm not saying make the playoffs, but just catch people off guard.
Be frisky. Yeah, I agree.
I like that.
They're poised for that this year. They should have. Again, this is all dependent on how they attack the offseason. But if they have the offseason, I think they can and should have. They can they can make some noise in the division. Again, I'm not saying winning, not winning the division outright. But I can see them going 3-3 in the division, something like that. That makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, because last year was 2-4, although the second win was kind of like,
yeah, against the Bills.
yeah, it's just gonna be a shame when Joe Milton gets traded to Cleveland for a third-round pick. I'm kidding. I actually kind of don't mind him as a backup.
I like him.
No, it's just New England. We want them to have a good offseason, and you know what? Either the jersey reband's coming or they're really teasing us. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think it's complete. I think they just introduced a new throwback.
Yeah, I think the blueberry uniforms. I think the Crafts like them more than we all think they do. So people are like, "Oh, we're definitely gonna get new uniforms." I'm like, I don't know. I think he kind of likes it. I can see them going blue and silver as the primary, though. I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, I can see blue and silver. I can see the white jerseys with the blue pants, and then I know everyone wants the '90s throwbacks, but I want them to bring back the retro Pat Patriots that they wore in that disgusting 2009 game against the Broncos, and those like not burgundy, it was like those brown uniforms with the orange pants.
What? What? Did I just block this out of my mind?
Yeah, I would. My phone's dead. Otherwise, I would show you. But it was a 2009 game. Josh McDaniels was the coach of the Broncos, and they wore basically the white Pat Patriot throwbacks, and it's.
Oh, okay. I see
Yeah.
it. I see it. Wow, what a memory for you to remember that. Yeah, this is hideous. This is hideous for the people.
Yeah.
Hideous. Hideous. Look at come on. No. Why?
Yeah, and then there was a rumor too of the silver uniform coming back as well, but I'm just like, I love uniforms. I just don't need the Patriots I don't need it becoming the NBA where it's like they have like a million uniform combinations, or we're the University of Oregon where we wear a new jersey every year, every game.
Yeah, I think that always speaks to, and I'm not going to change my mind on this. That speaks to an organization that's unsure of itself. I think stable organizations have their standard uniforms, and they're like, we're just rolling. This is just what we look like. Like the Raiders, just what we look like. And now, obviously, that's not a great team. They haven't had many good teams over the years, but like they're like, hey, as far as branding goes, we look like this. We've always looked like this. The Vikings are another one where it's like, hey, we look like this almost all of the time, right? They had those sick white uniforms; those are pretty cool. But other than that, you're like, this is just what we look like. I think teams that change too often are usually teams that don't have a record of success,
like the Jets and the Browns.
Like the Jets and the Browns and the Falcons. The Falcons is who came to mind first, or whatever it is. Like Falcons high key changed their uniforms quite a bit.
Although if they were to keep the Dirty Bird uniforms, I'd be totally okay with that. That's one thing I'll say.
Yeah, they're fine.
No, like I mean, like the old Falcons, like the old Falcons logo.
Oh yes, okay, yeah. I was like, they're all right. Yes, the old school one they used to wear with Mike Vick. Yeah, like it. I like it.
Yeah, like there's other teams too like that. Like even the Chiefs are like that. Dallas is like that. Where I know Dallas has that weird like red stripe helmet, but besides that, they don't do anything that's like out of character for them.
Yep.
And then even the Eagles are kind of like that as well.
Yep. Yeah, they just look like what they look like, and Pittsburgh's like that. They don't really get too out there with their uniforms. They're just like
the Bumblebee one.
Yeah, God, I love those. It's just I think the Patriots may just stick with what they have, and maybe add another like combination or kind of call another throwback, but I can't see them doing a full rebrand of their uniform. Although I know most people would want that.
I think it's also too, if anything, too, if teams start doing it more often, it's going to be more for cash grabs than just for wearing on the field.
Yeah.
Because I need new jerseys going into next year, and I don't want to break my wallet totally because I'm set on one. I don't know what my other one is.
What's your first one?
Pat Patriot Gonzo. That's red.
I love it.
The red with the zero.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
And then I'm debating with Drake. Do I go blue or do I go white or do I wait?
I'd probably go white because white uniforms go so hard.
I will, unless they do surprise us with something where it's like where they have the home, the road, the Patriot, which they'll wear twice a year, and then they have like another random alternate, kind of like how the Eagles have that black jersey that they'll wear once or
Yeah.
twice a season.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that, But you know what, guys? Like I said, podcasts like this in the off season are a lot of fun because there's no stress, there's no badness from last weekend, just no football. There's no, what's going to happen this weekend? It's just going to be, trying to figure it out one Sunday at a time before the UFL comes back and then the CFL comes back.
Absolutely. I'm hopeful to be back on after the combine and once free agency kicks off. It's hard to believe we're only like a month out. It's like we're not that far from people being very mad online. So that'll be fun.
I get to be mad online. So here's a programming note for the viewers, which is unfortunate. But the week when free agency starts, I will be somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So
Good for you. You deserve it.
Yes, I will be on a cruise, which I'm very much looking forward to. So I probably will do a show a few days after free agency, but after the combine, before the combine, after free agency, and draft. McGarvin and I get to kick it like this. We'll have some other people. We'll definitely get the squad back together, though.
Oh, absolutely.
But you know what, guys? Next episode's 350. 349's in the bag. McGarvin, hoping you guys enjoyed our conversation. I believe McGarvin did. I don't know.
I definitely did.
I forced him here against his will. Not really. You know what, guys? Just keep enjoying the off season because we miss football, but you know what? It's also fun to talk football.
Absolutely.
Have a good night. I love when he says that. Absolutely. Have a good night.